Well, good evening, folks. Welcome along to the Rangers Rabble Podcast, and you're live at 5 tonight with myself, Alex. I will be your host, and I'm joined by Callum. Callum, how you doing, mate?
Mate, doing good. It's actually been a rare kind of positive time to be a Rangers fan at the minute. Well, I think we're all quite excited. We've got a manager we're really liking, and the players seem to be playing a bit better. So, very good spirits related to Rangers at the minute, and hopefully we can continue. Looking forward to getting some good chat going.
No, definitely, mate. And evening to all in the comments. Sniper, Ray, mate. Lyndon, I wasn't late, so you can. There's your 1 to 20 odds gone, mate. Wasn't late. JD and Tess, hope you're all well. So, obviously, it is the title of the day show. Callum, Finley Curtis obviously played pretty well against Annan Athletic. I thought he had a very good performance, but he has joined Kilmarnock on loan for the remainder of the season. I think it's probably a good move for Finley. What's your thoughts on that loan move then?
It's an interesting one. I mean, I think at the start of the season when he sort of first broke into the team, we were all thinking there's real promise in this lad and he should probably get a bit more sort of first team minutes and the like. I think you can clearly see there's talent there. Like you were saying, Alex, I thought against Annan Athletic, admittedly lower competition, he was very, very good. He was sort of the outstanding performer for me. I think he got a really good assist and he was just sort of looking really good in the line, putting good balls in. I think what's really probably affected it a lot is you've got, obviously, Skov Olsen coming in. He's going to be starting. He's not going to be playing on the bench. And you've also got players like Ant-Man, sort of Mikey Moore floating about in there. So I think overall, mate, it's probably best for his development. You want a player like that to be getting game time in Scottish football. I think it's a decent club to go to as well. He's staying in the league. He's not going to be able to play against us for them. So overall, I'm a wee bit disappointed that he maybe didn't get a bit more air running the team. I thought he did have enough to offer. But what I hope is we get him back in the summer. The experience serves him well. And we can maybe give him another go in the first team. Because I don't want it to be another one of these where we just keep loaning them out and their career kind of fizzles out at Rangers. So I think overall a good move. But I think we've got to be careful with this boy's development. Because I do think there is a real talent there. And he could potentially be good enough for the first team one day.
No, definitely. I think, it's one of those moves that it could be very good for his career, especially if he is going to somebody like Kilmarnock, obviously in the league, as you're saying, he's staying in the SPFL. But, I mean, Aldo Penny is right as well that he's saying it's a horrendous move because he's going to be playing on that plastic pitch every second week. But I think for somebody like Finley, it's more about the consistency of getting game time. He's not going to get that consistency at Rangers, especially, as you're saying, we've got Kasama, we've got Mikey Moore, we've got Ant-Man, we've got Skov Olsen. So I don't think he's going to get that consistency. But he's a young lad. He needs that game time. He's under a very good manager in Neil McCann, who was a favourite of him at Rangers when he was here. So I think it is probably the right move for Finley as long as he's getting good game time.
Aye, definitely. And I think, I know what you're saying about the plastic park and all that. We've obviously, fans across Scottish football are kind of against them. And I get it, but I think it probably is a good move for him, given the fact that, as you say, he's got that relationship with Neil McCann and Billy Dodds. There's a bit of familiarity there. And I think as well, Kilmarnock showed real interest in him. I think pretty much since the first day of January, he was linked to a loan move there. So it looks to me like Neil McCann certainly views him in his first team plans. He's probably going to get quite a bit of game time, which will only be good for him. And it's one of them, mate. I really like him, and as I say, I would like to see him get more game time at Rangers. But if you can't guarantee him the game time at that sort of age, probably the best move. If he's going to be starting most games there, probably a good move for him. And once again, keeps him in the league. He's going to sort of probably build up a bit of experience playing in the SPL, as a kind of first teamer. So, there's some things I'm not too happy about with it, but I think overall it was about as good a move he's going to get. I feel as well, Alex, we've had times in the past we loan people down to England or these other leagues, and I don't think it ever seems to work out as well. So I'm glad he's kind of staying in Scotland. I'm also happy with the plastic park and all that, but overall I think a decent move for him, especially if he's going to get a lot of game time, which it does look like.
One thing you've got to imagine, though, for somebody like Finley, he's leaving Rangers, who are in a title charge right now. Obviously, we're trying to fight for that league title. where he's going to Kilmarnock, who right now are fighting a relegation battle. They're sitting 11th in the table. They're obviously not in great form right now. They've just been knocked out the Scottish Cup. So, I mean, he's going to have his work cut out for him. If he's getting game time, he's going to have to put in some performance to, one, be picked week in, week out in a struggling team that are fighting relegation, but two, he doesn't want to knock his confidence in getting relegated out of the league with Kilmarnock.
Aye, definitely. I mean, I think if you look at Kilmarnock, they obviously are in and around the relegation battle. I don't think they will go down personally, just based on what I've seen. I think Livingston looked to me quite comfortable like the team who are going to go down. And I still think Kilmarnock probably got good enough players to stay up in the end. I think it's kind of double-edged sword, Alex. He could go into that team. They might be really down in the dumps about their form this season. You'd hope that wouldn't hinder him. But at the same time, you might be able to go and make a big impact, lift the squad, and push them towards a decent second half of the campaign. So I think time will tell. But as I say, I'm glad he's working with Neil McCann. I think that'll be good for his development. Someone who sort of knows him well, good Rangers man, obviously. So yeah, I hear both sides of it, but I think no other clubs were really looking at him. We've got to be honest with that as well. We do need to find someone to loan him out to. Obviously, Aberdeen have went in for Lyle Cameron and all that. Mm-hmm. Kelly was probably about as good a level he was going to play at. I think if he goes to a bigger club than that, he's probably not guaranteed the first team football. And I think with Kelly, he probably will get that. So, as I say again, overall, a pretty decent move, I think.
I've got to ask, folk are getting very offended in the comments that you've had an L stole at your name. What's going on? The folk are raging here. They're all raging. You've only got one L. What's happened, mate?
I can't choose my parents' name, mate. You know what I mean? I get that a lot. I've always felt a wee bit odd one out with the one L in the name, but it is what it is, mate. I've heard it's a more Scottish way of naming it, apparently, so I can take some pride in that, but one L for me.
I do think, there's a lot of people obviously not happy that Finley's went out on loan. You could see that he wasn't favoured at the club under Danny Rule. That might be something to do with training. That might be just whatever we're seeing the pitch. I spoke about it last night, that there's also something in the fact that players are brought in for a fee. I'm loving that the Q&A about Callum's name. Players that are brought in for a fee are going to get game time. Now, Finley has shown that he's got talent, but for whatever reason, himself and Lyle Cameron haven't been favoured. But the fact that they're going to go out and get game time, and it's looking like it's straight loans for the pair of them. There's no option or obligation or anything to buy. That probably puts it in Rangers' favour as well. Because if they go out and have a great remaining half of the season and come back to us stronger players, they fight for a place in that team. So I'm very much of the option that, yes, they should go on loan. There's players in the team that probably should have went before him, but I don't disagree that he should have went out if he's not going to get game time. He's only 19.
Aye, and I think what you said there, Alex, that was probably one of my big sort of criticisms of Roll early on, is that I really thought that Curtis and Cameron, given how poor we knew the squad was, particularly earlier in the season, I thought they should have got a bit more game time. But look, we're not there in the training pitch. We don't know how they train, what their attitude's like. I never sensed any sort of bad attitude or anything from them, to be totally honest with you. But I think what's changed a wee bit, Alex, is obviously the team is starting to perform a bit better now. There's players like Mikey Moore where, you look 4 months ago, everyone was writing him off, and now we're considering one of our sort of best players in the attack. Mm-hmm. So I think that has changed it a lot. It's a lot more difficult to guarantee game time if you've got Mikey Moore in good form, if you've got Gassama in good form. And then, as I say, I think the killer for me, you bring a player like Sco Wilson in, I can't see him not being first name in the team sheet pretty much every week unless something, really bad happens with that transfer. And it's an area of the pitch where we are, actually, we do have quite a lot of depth already. I think in the wide areas, we're not so bad in terms of depth. I think there's other areas where we would need the depth more. So I think, if Roll doesn't fancy them, he's not going to give them game time. It probably is the best for them. I also think what you're saying there, if they have a good loan move, potentially one of the clubs might try to go in for them, get them on a permanent. That could be a good bit of money for the club. Obviously, we've not paid anything for Finley Curtis and Lyle Cameron. It's going to be a pretty small fee to Dundee. So, potentially with that game time, you could also increase their value, get a good wee profit on them. I just don't think that was going to happen if they were sort of getting the odd bench minutes here and there. I mean, Finley Curtis has had barely any game time, has he? Under Danny Rose, it's been the odd few minutes off the bench. I don't even know if Lyle Cameron's had a start under Danny Rowe. I think he's maybe had one appearance off the bench, if that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, given their game time, Alex, I think he was the only move for them.
No, definitely. And we've got a wee question here from Paul Robinson. Anybody else, if you've got any questions, put a wee queue in front of it and we'll get it brought up. But Paul, have you seen the news that Rangers are after the striker Tomas Kavankara from Borussia Mönchengladbach? I have seen that. If it was me, I'd be saying no, because he's a tall striker. I think he's like 6'2", but his goal return is pretty poor for my opinion. Callum, he's not really had the best of starts at Mönchengladbach. He is now out on loan at Antalyaspor, and I just think he's one of those players that even at like Sparta Prague, I think maybe his second season at Sparta Prague, he had a good goal return. After that, at Mönchengladbach, he's not really hit the back of the net too many times, and it'd be a massive risk to take it on. He is a very tall striker. I think he's 6'3". He's only 25, but again, it's looking like it would be a loan until the end of the season.
I mean, I had a wee look at that before we went on the show. I think he broke quite late in the afternoon, sort of around 4 o'clock. So we don't really know too much about the guy, but from what I've looked at him, I kind of agree with what you were saying there. His numbers aren't really shouting out to you as a sort of Rangers number 9. And I think, to be honest, that is a real area of priority for us. You know, I think Chermiti, we've seen forward steps there, to some extent with Miovski as well, but at the end of the day, they're not getting the kind of goal return that I think you're going to need to win this title. And I think everybody knows that probably Rangers' biggest issue this season has been the attacking areas, getting the goals into the team. And I think you're really wanting a reliable number 9 who you know is going to get you goals. I think that's a big, big risk. You know what I mean? Now, it could pay off very well, and you never know, he might be like a Daryl Purcell or something for us. He might be amazing. But yeah, it doesn't really. The one positive I would take from it, though, Alex, I'm glad they are looking for a striker. I think wrestling your laurels with Chermiti, Danilo and Miovski, I don't think that's going to work for me. I know you're probably going to have to offload one of them, which is going to be tough. Probably want that to be Danilo, but I really do think that's a priority position. As much as I say, Chermiti's improved a bit, I don't know. I think we need a reliable goal scorer up top to really put a nail on this title charge, you know.
No, definitely. And I didn't want to be mean. Shona gone, the stats are horrendous, and then Brian saying, no thanks, terrible stats. I didn't want to be mean to the boy, but yes, his stats are very shocking, and I don't think he's going to be quality to bring in. I do think that there's better players we can look at, and as Ian was saying, you know, we don't have any loan slots left. So again, we'd have to unload a couple of players that we've already got on loan right now. There's 2 centre-halves that I could easily think could go because they're both, one's injured and one's absolutely hoaching. So I do think so. But there's a question here from Nelly. If we can bring in 2 new players, what areas are the most important to be covered? Centre-back, another winger or a striker? Centre-back, definitely. We fully need a centre-back, Callum. I think we're a bit light in terms of actual quality there. I don't think we need another winger. We've unloaded Finley Curtis because we've got far too many. But as you just said there, a number 9 that's actually going to get us goals to get us over the line.
Aye, for me, Alex, it's centre-back and striker 100%. I think another sort of first-team centre-half, maybe to play alongside Fernandes, would really do the team a lot of good. And as I say, I think we need some goals up top as well. I'd possibly maybe take another midfielder too. I think with Connor Barron being injured, he's been quite a mainstay in the team recently. And that's going to be quite a hard one to sort of replace, I think. As much as he's a limited player, you know, he's played his part this season. I think, you know, you look at centre-half, I've heard Cornelius might be back quite soon. It's obviously quite difficult to judge when we haven't seen too much of him, but I think he did look a decent player when he was playing for us. But I think even regardless of that, you still want one more in there. I don't think MCL has looked convincing. I think Giga's frankly been a poor signing. Suter, to be fair, looking a bit better, but can't really trust him with the injury record. So for me, Alex, it's centre-back and striker. That's your 2 priority positions to get in this window. I think if we get centre-half and a striker, they're going to the first team, I'd then be very happy with our transfer window, because I think you're talking sort of 5 first-team players there, and that was sort of about what I was looking for in this window.
Not definitely, mate. And I actually don't know this one. I haven't checked, but what Scottish players do we have the Europa League squad on Thursday? So we've got John Suter, and maybe John Suter, because Connor Barron's obviously injured. We'll have Liam Kelly, but then it'd have to be youth players. I think, Callum, it's going to have to be the youth coming onto the actual bench rather than anything else, because we've not got many Scottish players actually in the main team that are going to be fit and ready to go. So, it's going to be a bit of a worry in terms of actually getting that bench. You're probably going to have to get a little creative with what we do on the bench in terms of putting youth just to fill it out a bit.
I'm trying to think back to my sort of football manager days now to think what the rule is, but I think it's like 4 homegrown players or something like that you have to have in the Europa squad. And obviously that's a bit of a challenge for us. We've all spoken at length about sort of Rangers' struggles with youth development and bringing through Scottish players over the years. So, I mean, see, one thing on that, though, is it's probably a good time to play a bit of youth, given it is, a total bed rubber we've got on Thursday. Some of them did sort of play against Allen. I think he was Zebedee Lawson, looked quite impressive by all accounts. So it might be a good game to try a few of them out. I really am not too fussed about the game on Thursday. Obviously, do want us to win it, but full focus has got to be our domestic action now. So yeah, that might be a bit of a challenge, but it could also be an opportunity to try out some of these youth players we've not seen as much of. I think it's sort of the ideal stage for that, isn't it?
I mean, we need to play the kids at this point. We can't get through in Europe. We need to just be relying on actually the league, as you're saying. But Paul, in with a question he's asking, if we don't, I can't seem to get a striker we want. Do you think we could do a deal with Leeds for Joe Perreault? Obviously, he was a target of our friends across the city who didn't really realise that there was a connection there and got laughed right out of the building. But Joe Perreault is a guy that's actually getting regular football right now with Leeds in the Premier League. It's going to have to be some amount of wheeling and dealing to get Joe Perreault in for Rangers. I think he's a great talent that could get goals, no bother. But he's part of that main team already, Callum.
I think that's one that's going to be very hard to do. I mean, obviously there was the whole part about sort of Celtic getting laughed out of the room, but I think also a part of it was that he wanted to stay at Leeds, which you can't really, blame him for. They're a Premier League club who are doing pretty well at the minute. He's going to be on pretty big wages, I'd imagine. I agree with you that I think he'd improve the team. He was one of these who I think done very well for Leeds in the Championship. I'm not sure quite how well he's done in the Premier League. I don't think quite as well, but it's obviously a much, much higher standard of competition. So I think that one's unlikely. I'd certainly take it if it was a deal we could get done. But I think he wants to stay at Leeds, and I can't really see him moving in this window.
No, definitely not. And Nelly, if Fernandes and Suter remain our centre-back pair, what will happen when Cornelius, Jesus Christ, can he get that there, does return? Does he go to left-back? Magoma has improved. I definitely don't think he goes to left-back, Callum, especially when we brought in Romans as well. He's pretty much going to be second or third choice centre-half. I don't think he's really going to even get into the full-back position, so he'll be probably challenging for a position with John Suter, I'd imagine.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think with Roman signing, that kind of sorts out your left-back slot. I think a player of his sort of calibre is probably there to be playing most weeks. And then got Magoma there as well till the end of the season, who I think's done pretty well. He's had his bad moments, but he's done pretty well overall for us. So yeah, you'd probably be looking at sort of cover for your Suter and Fernandes. I think Fernandes, for me, might even be my player of the season so far. I've been really impressed with him, especially in recent months, both defensively and sort of getting us goals for the set pieces and all that. And I think to be fair to Suter as well, he's actually shown really good form since he's come back into the team. I've criticised him a lot in recent years, and it is still early days. He's only just back, but I think that looks like that could be a pretty solid partnership. And to be fair to Cornelius, though, he did look decent when we seen him. I don't think many Rangers fans were really slating him. I thought we were all quite happy with him. But I think with a long-term injury like that, with other defenders playing themselves into a bit of form, you obviously got to think about, maybe a Sterling could come back as well, possibly challenge for those positions too. It definitely does seem difficult for him to get into the first team anyway. I think he probably will be covered for the rest of the season.
No, definitely. And there's obviously the guys you mentioned in the comments, and it's popped up in our chat, and Rangers have also tweeted it as well, that Stevie Smith has going to confirm that he will be staying on with the first team coaching staff for the remainder of the season. So it's a great bit of business from Rangers to at least keep him on the coaching staff of the first team, because he's obviously had some impact already that we've seen it. taking over from Russell Martin and then managing to stay within the first team. So for somebody like Stevie Smith, it's going to do wonders for his career under Danny Rowe, but he's obviously made an impact on his own as well, and he's got some very good names alongside him as well. Like Danny Rowe's coaching staff seems to be getting bigger and bigger as the days go on, but it's making an impact for the first team. We can quite clearly see the results are there.
Aye, definitely. I think he seems like quite a safe pair of hands, Stevie Smith. He's obviously someone who bleeds red, white and blue. And I remember there was a lot of speculation when Rowe first came in about, is he going to get a sort of Rangers man on his coaching staff? And there was a lot of talk about maybe Neil McCann, someone else maybe going into his coaching staff. And I don't think many people were really floating Stevie Smith's name. And to be fair, I don't know an awful lot about what he sort of does in the background. He does seem like a more quiet character. I've no sort of heard much from him since he's been first team coach again. Yeah, but by all means, it seems like a decent appointment. He has been in the building for a long, long time, so you'll know a lot of the players inside out. He knows Rangers inside out. But yeah, it's difficult to comment on his coaching. You know, we don't really know all that much about it, but I think we all know the role as a good manager, and I think we're all very pleased with him at the minute. And if that's the guy he wants in his coaching staff, then all power to it, and we should just get fully behind him. He's a good lad, Stevie Smith. You know, I don't think anyone can complain about having him on board.
There's been a lot of chat in the comments because I said it was a dead rubber game on Thursday against Ludogorets, and then we've obviously got Porto. I think there's a wee bit of no confusion. There's just a wee bit of people are obviously wondering what's going on with the coefficient points. So right now, if we lose our 2 remaining games, I'm reading the article about it right now. A further 2 points will be added to our coefficient, taking us up to 59.25 points. Will be then 3 points ahead of Olympiacos, who are the current threat to us not getting an automatic place right now. Olympiacos can, if they lose both of their remaining games, maximum they can get is 58.5, so they won't be able to catch Rangers. If we get a win and a draw, we'll get 60.25, and if we get 2 wins, we'll get 61.25. So realistically for Rangers, a draw and a win and a draw, or 2 defeats, will still stick on 59.25. All eyes then turn to Olympiacos to make sure that they are not going to be catching Rangers. If we do win the league, we get automatically, with our coefficient points, automatically into Champions League. We don't have to go through any qualifiers. So it puts a lot more pressure on next season, Callum, to actually perform this season. Because if we don't, I think it's second or third round of Europa League. And even if we drop further, then it's worse for the Conference League. So we actually need to be watching what we're doing in terms of next season.
Definitely. I mean, I think the whole coefficient thing, it's been damaged a lot by just Scottish teams haven't done that well in the last few years. I think this season, sort of, both us and our friends across the city, pretty dreadful European campaign so far, and that's done a lot of damage to the coefficient. I think as well, like this is the last year where the league winner's just going to go straight to the Champions League. I think because of how the teams have performed, you're going to go back to having to play qualifiers even if you win the league. So look, it's obviously not a total dead rubber. There is an element of stuff to fight for there. But, I still think it's a game where you want to be playing youth, trying some new players out, because I think we all know the league's the absolute priority. So yeah, it would obviously be nice to get results, build some winning momentum. I'm not going to throw my toys out the pram if we don't win though, because I don't think it's that important. But yeah, a win's always nice. If we can build a bit more winning momentum, that'd be good, and obviously stack up the coefficient points. So hoping for a win, but not the most on the line in the game, obviously.
I will say that it's quite interesting because of the way the coefficient points are right now. Rangers are the only team that will automatically qualify for the Champions League. If we win the league, the other 2 teams, as in Hearts and Celtic, will have to actually play qualifiers. So it's interesting, even if they win the league, they have to play qualifiers, but because of our coefficient, we'll just go straight into it. And we also look to be making the most money as well by going straight into the qualifiers. Apologies if you can hear my phone. Martin's buzzing me with stuff that we've already spoke about. So he's like trying to pay attention and no paying attention to the show. He's buzzing me, telling me that stuff's happening when I can quite clearly see it. So it's an interesting one to look at though, because we we now have something. Yes, we all want to win the league, but we've got something to play for in terms of we need to be getting to a point where we need to be getting the most money back in the club. We're spending a lot right now, and financial fair play will start coming into it if we don't be qualifying for these tournaments. Everybody wants to be in the Champions League, but we just don't want to be getting absolutely bent over like we did a couple of seasons ago. And then obviously within the Club Bruges game just showed exactly how we got on as well. So we need to be improving. But the only way you do that is by getting into these competitions, Callum.
Absolutely. And, Rangers European nights have always been great fun to follow. And even in the sort of doldrums of the last sort of 12, 15 years, we've been pretty good in Europe for the most part, especially sort of post Steven Gerrard. So it's been really disappointing, sort of the campaign we had this season, really not going to plan. But, Rangers are a club that should be aiming to compete in Europe, I think, in the Champions League. I think we're a club that are big enough to have those expectations. But at the end of the day, you've got to take care of domestic business first before you sort of look to those heights, I think. And obviously, whether we win the league or not, it's going to have a huge impact on what European competition we're in next season. So, it's always something we should be aiming to do well in. We were terrible in it this season, and, we really should be getting back to winning ways in Europe. If we can at least get a win in the competition, that'll be nice, But it's something the Rangers do need to be locked into, because it's very important for the club, especially financially, as you're saying, Alex. Make a lot of money qualifying for these group stages, and just winning the games gives you quite a big fee, TV money as well that you get for it. So it's very important for us, but domestic's your bread and butter, and we got to focus on winning that title first and foremost.
Here's an interesting question for you, and that's actually a very good point from Geordie. Right now, are we a Champions League team? I'd happily stay down the Europa League. Yes, the Champions League money would be fantastic, but if it means going far in Europe, I'd be happy. I think the only way, Callum, I just said it there, I think the only way you get to be a Champions League team is by being in the competition, getting the money. Look at was it last season 4 when Chelsea won the Conference League? They got like 4 million for winning it, but Slovian Bratislava, who came absolutely dead last, got like 14 million for losing every game. And it's like, it shows you the level of money that you get just for being in the Champions League. Yes, you don't want to see a team getting absolutely pummeled week in, week out, but the money that you get from this competition is crazy good. And actually, it then sets you up to be able to buy better players, and you then become more of an attractive prospect because you're in the Champions League.
Yeah, and I think there was a comment touching on it there, but I think the new format is also quite favourable to us too. I think the last time we were in the Champions League, you had it was Napoli, Liverpool, Ajax, and we just got drubbed by all of them. I think you'd have a bit better fortune with that new sort of format. I think that does make it a bit easier for a club like Rangers to compete. I can kind of see the argument, it would be fun having another good Europa run, and we could probably get quite deep in it, but I think if you want to be a serious top club, you got to be looking at the Champions League. I think, as you say, Alex, as much as we do have a bit more money now, the kind of transformative effect could have bringing in that Champions League money could help us take our club to the next level. So I always want to play in the Champions League. We've had great runs in the Europa League, but I think especially with this new format, it's something Rangers could have a real good go at, and the finances for the club would be really improved if we were able to get there,
No, definitely. Well, mate, I think we've done our bit tonight, so we are going to leave it there for today, folks. That has been your Live at 5 on the Rangers Rabble. There's a silly show. I don't know what it is tonight. It's 7 o'clock. I'm not sure what it is. No, join us tonight at 7 o'clock as Thompson will take you through Thompson's Tuesdays and cover exactly what we've covered tonight, because that's all that's happened in Rangers for the past couple of days. So you'll be looking forward to that. But until then, folks, go away, enjoy the rest of your night. Join us back at 7 o'clock. Callum, thank you very much, mate. And we'll see you all again very, very soon.